Hello, I'm Mike Rolden, and welcome to my podcast, On the Frontline. This is a series about what it's like to work at the coalface of poverty and deprivation in our city, Hamilton, in New Zealand. In today's episode, I want to talk about food and the food crisis that's happening in New Zealand at the moment. But first of all, I'd like to give you a little bit of a background about St Vincent de Paul. There was actually a man called Vincent de Paul who was a priest in the 1400s. As a Catholic priest, he lived in France, and he was the first person recognised by the church as actually helping the poor. His core values were simple: feed the hungry, clothe the naked, give water to the thirsty, educate the poor. The Society of St Vincent de Paul, however, was founded in 1833 by a student at a university in Paris called Frederick Osman. Him and 8 of his friends formed the society, and they stuck to the same core values: feed the hungry, clothe the naked, give water to the thirsty, educate the poor. And those are the same values that here in Hamilton today in 2022 that we stick closely to enable us to do the works that they set out to do back in the day. Our head office is still in Paris, so that's good, but we're in a number of countries. In New Zealand, we've been here 155 years. In Hamilton, we started in 1962, so 60 years this year. We've been based in Hamilton, and we've been helping the poor and the needy in our city. One of the things I'd like to talk about is we do so many things now with St Vincent de Paul in this space, but today I want to talk about the food space because that seems to be the tipping point of most people in today's society. We run 3 separate food operations. One is our food bank, which is the largest in the Waikato. One is our Least We Forget program, which is our Feeding the Pensioners program. And the other one is our community lunch, where we prepare hot meals 3 days a week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and give it to those people who either live in the streets, live in their cars, are lonely or feel isolated at their flats at home. This has developed over a number of years. When I first arrived, it was 1 meal per week on a Friday. And they basically got the same meal every Friday, which was sausages, cabbage, and mashed potatoes, or, for a variety, minced cabbage and mashed potatoes. In the last 6 years, we've really refined this lunch program and have a proper chef, and we have menus, and we have a variety of food. And it's really a social gathering for those people who are lonely and can come in and talk to their friends. They all sit at the same table every week, every day, and we're feeding around 100 people a week. We break up our menu so that we have a different variety of food every day. We could have lasagna, we could have a fish pie, we could have a mussel chowder, we could have curried sausages, we could have roast chicken. It's just a variety to give everyone something different to eat and a meal that they can really enjoy. For a lot of the people, or most of the people who come to our lunch, this is the main meal per day. In a number of cases, it's the only meal per day that they get. So we try to let them have at least 2 helpings if they'd like, and make sure they go away with a full tummy, knowing that tomorrow or the next day they'll be back again for some more food. It is an interesting program, but we've now stripped it down from having at least 9 or 10 people prepare it. We've got 2 or 3 people now, and it's a much more streamlined operation. But it's the detail, and it's what I learn when I go there and sit for the people who come for lunch, is about what's happening on the street, what are their issues, what are their problems, how can we help, and we develop programs around doing that. As an example, we realise that a lot of them have weaker teeth because they can't afford to go to the dentist, which means that we have to prepare meals that have softer meat tasting things so they can actually chew and eat the meal. And it's little things like that that really get me thinking about what's happened to our society, why is this happening, and why are the numbers growing and increasing over the years that I've been here. This is one of those things that keeps me on my toes, and it's really enjoyable to actually get together with them and have a chat about their life. Every one of them has a story about how they got there, and it's not always their fault, and they can't always be blamed or put in a cubbyhole where people say, and it's a common saying, oh, they're no good, they don't work. That's not actually the case. In a lot of cases, they're good people who've had bad luck. So that's a really interesting program, and we really enjoy preparing these lunches for these guys. Over lockdown, we actually did the same thing, but we gave them takeaway meals, so they actually still got fed. All the other providers were shut at that time, but we made sure that our guys got fed over the lockdown period. That's both lockdowns, with takeaway meals, American hot dogs, all sorts of things you could put in a takeaway container and leave the site, and it was really appreciated. The second program I'd like to talk to about is our Lest We Forget program. This is one of my favourite programs. It's about providing meals for pensioners, both in town and out of town, who are on their own and sometimes just can't be bothered to cook. So we take meals there, they're free. And the thing we've discovered most importantly to us is the fact, the loneliness that exists amongst the elderly in our communities. Their families don't visit them, they're on their own. And one case was an extreme case in Huntley where a lady we visited hadn't seen another human or spoke to another human being for over 3 months. So now we have allowed time for our delivery people to deliver the food and give them another 20 or 25 minutes where they can sit down and have a chat or maybe a cup of tea, just to get that feeling of human contact back into their lives. And it's working really well, and that program is really developing. In town, it's we're slightly different in the Pacifica community, where we provide lunches at an organised get-together for the elderly where they have an activities day. So we provide the lunches and make sure we give them enough food so those pensioners can take that food home and have dinner that night as well. So they're two really great programs. We're really interested in making sure that we stay connected with that elderly group who seem sometimes to be neglected or forgotten. But not at Vinnies, we make sure that we're there waving our flag and seeing that they're okay. The third part is our food bank. Now, ironically, when I first arrived at Vinnies 12 years ago, our food bank was a 2-door cupboard with 4 shelves, a few cans of baked beans and spaghetti, a couple of bit of milk, maybe some jelly, but there wasn't much at all. Switch forward 10 years, and now I've got a warehouse as our food bank, which operates 5 days a week. And last year in 2021, we handed out 3,516 food parcels, and they're family food parcels, to people in our city and around the Waikato. Now that's a massive increase. And the increase started in 2018 when we noticed that our numbers started to double, and they've doubled and tripled each year since then to last year. This year is exactly the same. We're going to have a large volume. And it's about people you wouldn't expect turning up and asking for help. There are a lot of people, first timers this year especially, I think it's gone up 30%, where our first timers have come in asking for food. And I don't know if people realise that how difficult it is for New Zealanders to ask for help and put their hand up. Generally, it's the women who come in, but in recent times we've had a number of men who've come in because they can't provide food for their families. Now, these men are in tears. They're apologising for actually using our service, which is not a big problem to us, but it's the effect that it's having on them. And the stories I get back is, how hard is it for me to decide every night, or those people to decide every night, how am I going to feed my family? What am I going to give them to eat? How much food have I got to give them? Which one of the adults, the mum or the dad, will not be eating tonight, but will eat the next night? And it's stories like that we hear constantly that keeps driving us to be better. At some point in the future, maybe, that we have to say we cannot manage anymore. We're at our peak. We can't do that. We haven't reached that peak yet, but I can see that if the cost of living crisis continues and the food prices go up and fuel prices go up, there is a point where most charities would have to say that we can't manage. And I think a lot of charities today are at that point. And fortunately for us, we have great support from local businesses, local corporates, general public, schools, to keep our food bank ticking over. It's the mainstay for a lot of people. We don't judge people who come for food, but we have recognised the fact that not everyone eats Kiwi food because we have such a diverse range of ethnic groups in New Zealand. So we've come up with diverse food packs. We provide packs for both New Zealanders. We have a Pacific Island pack, we have a Middle Eastern pack, and we have an Indian pack. And they all have different foods. And the reason we've done this is we recognise that there's a lot of food being wasted if all we gave out was Kiwi packs. Middle Eastern and Indians don't like spaghetti and baked beans. Generally, New Zealanders don't eat lentils or chickpeas, but the other ethnic groups do. They like flour to make their own flatbread. New Zealand women don't like that. They like bread cut and sliced and put in a plastic bag and handed over. So it's all these things we take into consideration before we make decisions about how we should operate. Our food bank is different. It's based on technology. It's a click and collect. You can order online. It's some upmarket modern food bank, and it's a model that MSD have suggested that should be spread out around the country. So that's what we do. That's our food space. It's busy, consistently busy, but we enjoy working there. We hope we can keep feeding those people who need the food for a long time to come. Thank you very much.